I never thought the person I loved the most could be the one to hurt me so deeply. My wife wasn't just someone I shared a house with. She was my closest friend, the person I trusted with every part of my heart. But love doesn't always break loudly. Sometimes it falls apart in silence, without you even noticing. It began on a quiet evening, rain tapping softly on the windows, the kind of peaceful night where everything should feel warm and safe. I was stirring a cup of tea in the kitchen, nothing special, just a calm moment at the end of an ordinary day. Then she walked in with a look I had never seen before. Her eyes weren't angry, just cold, tired, disconnected. She didn't sit with me, didn't ask how my day went, didn't even glance my way long enough to pretend she cared. That silence, it wasn't like the comfortable, quiet couples share. It felt like a wall rising between us, one brick at a time. I had no idea that moment would be the start of something painful. Nights where we lay inches apart, yet felt worlds away. Days where conversation became a chore instead of comfort. Moments where my heart wondered if love was slipping out of her hands. I didn't know what she was hiding. I didn't know how much it would hurt when I finally found out. I didn't know that trust, the very thing that held us together, could crack so quietly. But even when the truth broke me, even when she didn't know how deeply she had wounded my heart, I found something inside myself I didn't expect, the strength to forgive. Not because she asked, not because she admitted the pain she caused, but because sometimes love is choosing to heal even when the other person cannot say sorry. This is how she hurt me. This is how I learned to let go. This is how I discovered that forgiveness can be the bravest kind of love. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between us only grew wider. At first, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Clara was stressed. Her workload was bigger. That's what she told me. That's what I wanted to believe. But the signs were everywhere. She stopped waiting for me to eat dinner. Sometimes she said she wasn't hungry at all. Other times she would come home after eating with co-workers, even though she never used to go out after work before. Her phone was always in her hand now, locked, hidden, face down each time I walked near. She smiled at the screen more than she smiled at me. The kind of smile that used to belong to our conversations. Whenever I asked how she was doing, she gave that same tired answer. Just tired, Daniel. But tired people still laugh. Tired people still reach for the person they love. Tired people don't pull away from every touch as if it burns. One night, I finally tried to talk to her. I turned off the TV and let the silence settle between us. She looked up, confused about why the light and sound had suddenly disappeared. "Clara," I said quietly, "are we okay?" She blinked slowly like she expected the question but wished she didn't have to answer it. "We're fine. Work is just too much lately." That was all, nothing more. Then she turned her back to me and pulled the blanket up to her shoulders. It hurt more than any argument would have. Anger would mean she cared enough to feel something. Silence meant I was disappearing from her heart. I kept praying things would get better. But instead, the truth slipped into my hands one evening when I wasn't even looking for it. Clara stepped outside to get a food delivery. She left her phone on the couch. The screen lit up with a new message. "Good night, Clara. I'll think of you. Michael." I stared at that name like it was a stranger breaking into my home. My chest tightened. It wasn't just the words. It was the tenderness in them, a tenderness she no longer showed me. When Clara came back inside, I watched her. Her eyes were bright. Not because she saw me, but because someone else had already made her feel seen. She didn't notice my pain. She didn't notice my silence. She just walked to the table and ate like everything was normal. From that moment, every little thing had a new meaning. Her late nights, her excuses, her guarded phone, that perfume she hadn't worn in years, the careful way she did her hair now, even on ordinary work days. I told myself I needed proof. I needed to know the truth before asking her anything. So one Saturday, when she claimed she had to go into the office, I waited an hour, then drove to her workplace. The parking lot was nearly empty. Then I saw her car, and him. He opened the passenger door for her like he had done it many times before. She smiled, the kind of soft smile that used to be mine. They drove off together. My world didn't explode in that moment. It simply collapsed inward quietly, so quietly I couldn't even cry. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, unable to move. No reassurance, Only silence. That silence shattered the last piece of comfort I had left. I walked past her. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. My heart was already too broken to fight. Before I closed our bedroom door, I said softly, "I miss you, Clara. I just don't know how to reach you anymore." She didn't respond. I cried quietly where she couldn't see. Nights became painful after that. We shared the same bed, but not the same world. Each time she turned her back to me, it felt like she was closing a door tighter and tighter. I still tried. One morning I woke up early and made her favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes with honey. I placed a little flower beside the plate because I knew she used to like those small gestures. She woke up and stared at it. "That's sweet," she said, "but I'm not hungry." Then she left the room. She didn't take a single bite. I sat there looking at the cold pancakes, wondering when love had stopped being enough. A few nights later, she came home late again. This time I couldn't pretend anymore. "Please," I whispered, standing in front of her. "Talk to me. Tell me what's happening. Tell me if there's still a chance." Her face softened for just a moment. Guilt, maybe sadness, but it disappeared too fast. "I don't think so," she said. I felt everything inside me break at once. "You don't think you want me anymore," I repeated, just to make sure I had heard it correctly. She looked away. "I'm sorry, Daniel." But she didn't sound sorry. She sounded finished. I nodded because I couldn't speak. If I spoke, I would collapse. I walked away slowly, holding on to the last pieces of myself that hadn't fallen apart yet. That night, I learned what true loneliness feels like. Sleeping inches away from the person who no longer loves you. This completes the rewritten part 2 exactly in the style you requested. Soft, spoken, emotional, and without headings. Whenever you're ready, just say. I think the most painful moment wasn't when she admitted she didn't want me anymore. It was waking up the next morning and seeing her move around the room like nothing had happened. She brushed her hair, chose her clothes, checked her phone. She didn't look at me once. I sat up quietly watching her. She was right there, but no longer mine. When she left for work that day, she didn't kiss me goodbye. She didn't even say goodbye. The door closed behind her with a soft click. A sound so gentle, yet it echoed like thunder inside my chest. I stayed sitting on the bed for a long time. The silence was heavy and cold. I looked around the room, our photographs, our memories, all the little pieces of a life I thought we were building together. Suddenly they felt like decorations in a story that had already ended. I kept replaying everything in my mind, searching for the moment when she stopped loving me. Was it something I said? Something I didn't say? Did I hold her too loosely? Or too tightly? When did our warm home turn into a place she couldn't breathe in? I went to work that day, but I don't remember anything I did. My body was there, but my heart was somewhere else, still trying to understand why it wasn't enough. Days went by like that. Quiet mornings, cold evenings, shadows where love used to live. Clara stopped pretending. She didn't hide her phone calls anymore. She didn't lie about late nights. She simply stopped caring if I knew. There were times when she would walk into the house smelling like his cologne. Times when she would come home with a smile that wasn't for me. Times when she would look at her reflection in the mirror while texting him, fixing her hair, smiling at herself, glowing. And I would just watch, standing in the doorway, invisible. I felt like a ghost in my own marriage. Then came the night that broke me in a different way. It was a Friday. Clara said she was going out again. Work dinner, she said, like always. But this time, she didn't even bother with the work lie. She just said she was going out. That was it. I asked quietly, "What do you want me to do while you're gone?" She shrugged. "I don't know, whatever you want." She looked at me like she was tired of seeing my face, like every second near me was a burden. Then she left. I stood there for a while, staring at the door. My heart was crying even if my eyes weren't. Hours passed. 10, then 11, then midnight. I tried watching TV. I tried reading. I tried cleaning. But nothing stopped the ache. Nothing made me feel less abandoned. So I grabbed my keys and drove. I told myself I wasn't going to follow her. But I did. And I hated myself for it. I ended up parked across from a small restaurant. Her car was there. I saw her inside through the window. She was laughing. A hand rested lightly on his arm. She looked beautiful, so alive, so happy, like she had finally found the life she wanted. She touched his face. He leaned closer. They kissed, soft and gentle, like lovers who believe the world has given them a second chance. And I felt my heart crumble inside my chest. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers hurt. I wasn't angry. Just hollow. My love for her was still there, burning quietly, even as she gave her heart to someone else. I didn't confront them. I didn't make a scene. I simply drove away. When I got home, the house felt darker than usual. I sat in the kitchen with the light off, staring at the empty chair where she used to sit. I wondered how two people who once promised forever could end up on opposite sides of love. She came home hours later. I heard her humming softly, a tune I didn't recognize anymore. I stayed quiet. Maybe I wanted to see if she would say something, anything. But she walked past me as if I wasn't there. I whispered into the darkness, "I love you." She didn't hear. Or maybe she just didn't care. The next day I tried again. "Clara," I said gently, "I know you don't feel the same way anymore, but please, just tell me what you want from me. Do you want me to leave? Do you want to stay? I just need to know." She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes softened a little, like she recognized the person she once loved. But the softness faded quickly. "I don't know what I want," she said. I nodded, because what else could I do? That evening she went into the guest room with her pillow and a blanket. She said she needed space. I sat in the living room staring at the dark hallway, wondering how long space could last before it became an exit. The next few days were like living in a place where love was forbidden to speak. We moved around each other like careful shadows. No touch, no warmth, no future in sight. One night, I heard her crying quietly in the guest room. The sound tore into me. I stood outside her door, wanting to hold her, comfort her, take away whatever pain was in her heart, even if I wasn't the one causing it anymore. But I didn't knock. She wouldn't let me in. Another night I heard her talking on the phone, whispering, laughing softly. She wasn't crying anymore. She had found a different comfort, a different home for her heart, and still, I stayed. People might think I was weak. But love doesn't leave just because it gets hurt. Sometimes it stays even when it knows it shouldn't. There was one moment that I will never forget. I came home early from work one afternoon. Clara didn't hear me enter. She was in the living room cleaning up some papers. One slipped from her hands and landed near my feet. I bent to pick it up. It was a printed email, a flight confirmation, 2 tickets, a name, his name, a week away, a new beginning. She looked up when she noticed me holding the paper. Her eyes were wide with fear, not guilt. Fear. Fear of losing her escape. I held the paper out toward her. My hand was shaking. "You're leaving?" I asked quietly. She took the paper from me slowly. She didn't deny anything anymore. "I wasn't sure how to tell you," she said. I closed my eyes for a moment. The truth was so heavy I could barely breathe. "How long have you been planning this?" My voice barely made it out. "A while," she whispered. "Was I ever a part of the future you imagined?" I asked. She didn't answer, and that silence was the clearest truth she had ever given me. I turned away because if I looked at her any longer, I would fall apart completely. She stepped closer. Her voice trembled a little. "Daniel, I never wanted to hurt you." The tears I had held back for so long finally spilled over. My heart felt like it was breaking open. "But you did," I whispered. "You really did." She started crying too, not loudly, not dramatically, just soft tears. Kind that fall when you know the damage can't be undone. We stood there in the quiet room, both broken but in different ways. I loved her. She didn't love me anymore. That was the truth. I wiped my eyes and took a long breath. "Do you love him?" I asked one last time. This time she nodded. It was the smallest movement, but it felt like a hammer hitting my chest. "I'm sorry," she said again. I nodded slowly. Not because I forgave her yet, not because I understood, but because my heart was too tired to fight. I thought love meant holding on. But maybe love also means letting go when the person you cherish wants to fly somewhere else. That night, she didn't sleep in the guest room. She stayed awake in the living room, probably thinking about how everything was going to change. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling emptier than I'd ever felt in my life. I wondered if forgiveness was possible. I wondered if my heart could survive this loss. I wondered if one day I would breathe normally again. Morning came quietly. Clara was sitting at the table when I walked in. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept at all. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The truth was already between us, too heavy to ignore. I made us coffee, even though she usually didn't want anything I offered anymore. When I placed the cup in front of her, she looked up at me with red, tired eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Just 2 simple words. But after so many nights of silence, they felt like a crack of light in a dark room. I sat down across from her. We didn't hold hands. We didn't smile. We just sat there, silently mourning the love we once had. Even then, even with all the pain still fresh, a part of me still hoped we could find our way back. This completes part 3, the deep emotional turning point with heartbreak fully revealed and the relationship at its most fragile. Whenever you're ready, say. The next days felt heavier than anything I'd ever experienced. It was like living underwater. Every step slow, every breath painful, every sound distant. Clara and I existed in the same house, but there was no us anymore. Just 2 people trying not to drown in the quiet. She didn't mention the trip again. Neither did I. The papers were still on the counter, folded neatly as if waiting for a decision. I saw her glance at them sometimes, quickly looking away like the truth burned too much to face. I tried to go through my days like normal, but work felt meaningless. I kept thinking about the moment she would finally pack her things and walk out. Mornings became the hardest part. I would wake up and look beside me, expecting her to be gone already, but she was still there, silent, still breathing the same air. Still not mine. Sometimes I watched her when she wasn't looking. The guilt was written all over her face. She avoided my eyes. She spoke little. Her laughter disappeared again. She wasn't glowing anymore. She was filled with conflict, confusion, and fear. And that made it harder for me to hate her, because she was hurting too, just differently. One evening, she sat across from me at the dining table, the same place where so much had happened without words. She pushed her fork around her plate, not really eating. I watched her fingers tremble slightly. Finally, she looked up. Her voice was just a whisper. "Daniel, I don't know what I'm doing anymore." I wasn't angry. I wasn't cold. I simply asked, "Do you want to leave?" She closed her eyes for a long moment. A tear rolled down her cheek before she could hide it. "I wanted to," she said. "I thought it was the right thing. I thought I had fallen in love again. I thought he made me feel alive." Her voice shook, uneven and fragile. "But now I feel lost, because when I look at you, all I see is the person who has been there for me more than anyone else ever has." My throat tightened. "I don't want to be the reason you feel trapped," I said quietly. "If you truly want to go, I won't stop you." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't know what I want anymore," she repeated, helpless. For the first time in months, she reached out, not far, just enough for her fingers to touch the edge of my hand. It wasn't a romantic gesture. It was a desperate one, a plea. "Daniel, I am so sorry," she whispered. "I don't even know who I am anymore." Her apology didn't erase the pain. It didn't undo the nights I cried alone. But something shifted in my heart, something soft, because this wasn't the confident woman who walked away from me. This was the woman who stood beside me once as we promised forever. This was the woman who used to love me deeply, before she lost herself. I covered her hand gently with mine. "We can figure this out," said, "but only if you want to be here." She looked into my eyes for the first time in a long while. And in that moment, I saw pieces of the woman I had fallen in love with. The real Clara, not the version the world had twisted with pressure and expectations. But she withdrew her hand a second later, as if remembering her guilt. She stood up suddenly, leaving the table. She went into the bathroom and shut the door. I could hear her crying quietly inside. My heart ached, not for myself this time, but for her. After a while, she came out with red eyes. She didn't look at me. She walked to the bedroom and closed the door. I didn't follow. Some distances need silence before they can shrink again. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I wondered what forgiveness really meant. Did it mean pretending nothing happened? Did it mean starting over completely? Or did it mean holding the pain but not letting it destroy you? I wasn't sure, but I wanted to learn. The next morning, I found Clara in the kitchen making coffee, something she hadn't done for me in months. She placed a mug in front of me. It was the way I liked it, just a little cream. I looked up at her. "Thank you." She nodded without speaking. She sat down across from me and stared into her own cup. Her voice was soft when she finally spoke. "Are you angry with me?" I thought about it, about everything she had done, about the trail, about the nights I felt invisible, about the moment she told me she didn't want me anymore. "Yes," I said truthfully, "I'm hurt, deeply." She looked down, guilt heavy on her shoulders. "But I'm not angry like someone who wants to hurt you back," I continued. "I'm angry because I still love you. And seeing you slip away destroyed me." Her eyes filled with tears again. "I wish I could take it all back," she whispered. "I know," I replied. She wrapped her arms around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. "I don't deserve your kindness," she said. "Maybe not," I admitted softly. "But love was never about deserving." She looked at me, surprised, as if she couldn't believe I still had any love left to give. But I did. Because love wasn't something that could just disappear on command. We spent that day in a strange, quiet companionship. Not close, but not separated either. It was like we were learning to breathe in the same room again. I told myself to be patient. Healing doesn't happen in a day. The following weekend, we went for a walk. Just around the neighborhood. We walked slowly, saying little, but it was something. A step, a beginning. Sometimes her hand brushed against mine, sometimes she pulled away. I didn't take it personally. I could see the war happening inside her. Guilt fighting against longing, confusion against memory. When we came back home, she walked into the living room and picked up the folded flight papers. She held them in her hands for a long moment. Then she tore them slowly, not in anger, in trembling acceptance. "I'm staying," she said. My breath caught. A quiet relief washed over me, but she wasn't smiling. She looked afraid. "I don't know if I can fix everything," she said. "I don't know if I can give you what you deserve right now." "I don't need perfect," I replied. "I just need you to try." She nodded, tears falling again. That was the moment things truly shifted. That night she sat beside me on the couch, not close enough to hold, but close enough to know she chose to be there. We watched a show without really paying attention. Every few minutes, she glanced at me like she was making sure I was still there. Later, when she stood up to go to the guest room, she hesitated. She looked at our bedroom door. She looked at me. She looked terrified. "I want to sleep beside you," she whispered, "but I'm scared." I opened my hand toward her, just an invitation, not a demand. She walked over slowly and placed her hand in mine. We lay down in the bed like two people relearning how to be close. She didn't touch me. I didn't reach for her, but I could hear her breathing, steady, real, and right beside me. That was enough for that night. I closed my eyes and let the smallest bit of peace settle in my heart. The next morning, I woke up to find her watching me, not with distance, not with guilt, with something softer. "Good morning," she whispered. It was such a simple thing, but hearing her say it melted something inside me. We didn't talk about the past that day, or the pain, or the other man. We simply existed gently, together. I helped her with breakfast. She helped me in the garden. Every little act felt like stitching a small tear back together. But healing wasn't perfect. There were nights she cried herself to sleep, nights when she felt lost again, times when she avoided my touch because the weight of her mistakes was too heavy to carry. I never pushed. I never rushed. I simply stayed. One evening, weeks later, she walked into the room with tears in her eyes. I stood up quickly, afraid something was wrong. "I want to try," she said. Her voice was shaking. I want our marriage. I want us. I want to earn your forgiveness, even if it takes a long time. I didn't speak. I just opened my arms. She stepped into them and held me tightly for the first time in months. Her hands gripped my shirt like she was afraid I would disappear. She sobbed into my chest, and I held her gently, letting her cry out everything she'd kept inside. I'm sorry, she whispered over and over. I'm so sorry, Daniel. I love you. I never stopped loving you. I just forgot how to feel it. I kissed the top of her head, closing my eyes. We will move forward, I whispered back. Together. She looked up at me then, her tears shining in the soft light. Do you forgive me? She asked. I took a deep breath, the deepest one I had ever taken. Yes, I said. I forgive you. The forgiveness didn't erase the past. It didn't magically heal the wounds, but it opened a door back to us, and she stepped through it, holding my hand. For the first time in a long time, I felt hope again. Part 4 is complete. Emotional healing begins, slow and fragile with forgiveness emerging. Whenever you're ready, just reply. Continue, Part 5. In the final part, we will close the story with rebuilding trust, a meaningful moment of reconnecting love, a soft, reflective ending with a heartfelt life lesson. Whenever you say the word, I'll continue. Time passed, not quickly, but gently. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, piece by piece, our marriage began to heal. Clara started holding my hand again. At first only when she felt brave enough. Sometimes she would slip her fingers into mine, and then pull away a second later, afraid she didn't deserve comfort. But I always reached back. I always let her know I was there. We returned to little routines we had forgotten, cooking together, sharing morning coffee, evening walks around the neighborhood. We didn't force big conversations, we just kept choosing each other one small moment at a time. There were days when she smiled again, real smiles that reached her eyes, the kind I thought I would never see again. And each time she did, my heart would quietly celebrate. Then there were nights when she would wake up suddenly, breathing fast, scared of her own guilt. She would whisper, I'm sorry, in the dark, as if afraid the night might take her back to her mistakes. I would simply hold her hand and whisper, I know, we're okay. Forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a journey. It took time for me to learn that. It took time for Clara to believe it. One quiet evening, we sat on the couch together, the room lit only by the soft glow of a lamp. No distractions, no phones, just us. Clara leaned her head against my shoulder. Thank you, she murmured. For what? I asked. For not giving up on me, she whispered. For seeing the parts of me I forgot existed. For loving me when I couldn't love myself. I kissed her hair. I love you, I said. That never changed. She lifted her head, her eyes shining. But I hurt you, she said softly. Yes, I replied. You did. She swallowed hard, bracing herself. But I learned something through all of this, I continued. Love isn't proven when everything is perfect. It's proven when everything is broken. And one of you still chooses to stay and rebuild. Her tears spilled onto her cheeks, but they weren't the tears of guilt anymore. They were tears of healing. I'm so grateful you stayed, she whispered. I smiled. Not a forced one. Not a sad one. A real one. We both stayed, I said. That's what matters. Clara took a deep breath, letting out a soft sigh. Do you trust me? She asked, the question she had been afraid to ask for so long. I didn't answer right away. I wanted to be honest. Trust is coming back, I said. Slowly, but yes. I trust that you want us, and that's the first step. She nodded, relief filling her eyes. Then I'll spend as long as it takes, she said, proving you are safe with me again. From that moment on, we both worked, not out of fear, not out of duty, but out of love. Real love. The kind that doesn't run when things get hard. We found each other again in small ways. She held my hand in public. I touched her cheek when she looked tired. We laughed about silly things. We talked late into the night again. One afternoon, I walked into the living room and saw her looking at our wedding photos, the ones she once avoided. She smiled softly, tracing the outline of our younger selves. When she noticed me watching, she held up the portrait. We were just kids, she said. We were, I agreed. But we learned how to grow up together, she added, even if we took a painful detour. She placed the photo back on the shelf, but this time she left it where we could both see it every day. A reminder of where we began and how far we had come. Months passed, and the wound that once felt impossible to heal became a part of our story, not something that defined us, but something that shaped us. One night, as we lay in bed, Clara curled up beside me and placed her hand over my heart. "You still beat a little faster when I'm close," she whispered. "That's because you still matter," I replied. She smiled in the darkness. "I love you, Daniel," she said, not out of habit or apology, but out of certainty. "I love you too," I whispered back. We fell asleep wrapped in a peace we had been searching for so long. Now, looking back, I realized something important. People are imperfect, hearts are fragile, and love is a promise that must be renewed every day. Clara hurt me in a way I never thought she could. My heart cracked, my trust fractured. But forgiveness, true forgiveness, isn't pretending the pain never happened. It's choosing to move forward in spite of it. It's choosing love over pride, understanding over judgment, hope over fear. I learned that sometimes the person you love loses their way. Sometimes they forget who they are. Sometimes they make choices that break your heart. But if they are truly willing to come back, and if your heart is strong enough to open again, second chances can build something even stronger than what was lost. Clara and I are not perfect. We never were. But now, we are honest, we are present, we are grateful. And every morning when I wake up, and she is still there, still choosing me, I thank life for giving us another chance. Not every story like ours ends with forgiveness. Not every heart can take that journey, but mine did. It wasn't easy, it wasn't simple, but it was worth it. Because love isn't about never falling, it's about getting up. Together. If you ever face a moment where someone you love hurts you deeply, if your heart feels shattered and you don't know if healing is possible, remember this: people can change, pain can heal, and forgiveness can be the bridge back to love. Our story is not one of betrayal, it is a story of return, of rediscovering the love we thought we lost, of finding strength in places we didn't know existed. And most of all, it is a story of two imperfect hearts choosing each other again.